Maya's antennae twitched with amusement as she watched her crewmates. From the corner of the station's cantina, the Zenthari loved their games, especially the ones that let them turn fear into entertainment. And tonight's challenge was simple. Sit next to the human for a full meal cycle without flinching. No one had managed it yet. Humans were still new to the Galactic Cooperative. Barely 3 cycles since first contact, and their reputation had spread faster than any diplomatic envoy. Deathworlders, they were called. Survivors of a planet so hostile that simply existing there required an absurd tolerance for danger, pain, and chaos. Most species gave them a very wide berth at a corner table. The human in question sat alone. Ryan methodically worked through his meal with the focused intensity that made so many aliens uneasy. His dark hair fell across his forehead as he studied a datapad, apparently oblivious to the way nearby conversations dropped in volume. Whenever someone glanced his way, "I'll do it," Maya announced. Rising from her table, her blue skin darkened a shade with determination as Zenthari tell that sent a ripple of delighted whistles and chirps through her friends. For how long? Her friend Kelix demanded, antennae angled forward in challenge. The whole meal cycle, Maya said. And I'll make conversation. The table exploded in disbelief. Conversation. Someone squeaked. With a human. Another added that went beyond the dare. It was practically reckless. But Maya had always been curious about humans. She'd read all the reports. Unpredictable, resilient, prone to something called stubbornness that defied all logic. Dangerous not just physically, but because they didn't know when to quit. She straightened, manufacturing a confidence she wasn't entirely sure she felt, and walked toward Ryan's table. Her slender frame cast barely a shadow in the cantina's artificial light, but she could feel the weight of a dozen gazers on her back. "Seat taken?" she asked. Ryan looked up, and Maya very nearly let her antennae betray her surprise. His eyes were brown, warm instead of the cold, predatory gaze she'd been expecting from a Deathworlder. He smiled, a small but genuine expression that softened the angular lines of his face. "All yours," he said, gesturing to the chair across from him. Maya sat, folding her 3-fingered hands carefully on the table. Her crew were definitely still watching. She could practically feel Kelix's anticipation buzzing across the room. "I'm Maya," she said. "Engineering. Deck 7, Ryan," he replied, setting his datapad aside. "Xenobiology. Research Deck 12. He tilted his head, studying her with open curiosity. "You're Zenthari, right? I've been reading about your species. Your people can perceive electromagnetic fields." "Yes, Maya paused, caught off guard. Humans weren't supposed to be interested in other species. The reports had made that sound almost impossible. Self-absorbed, focused on their own survival, barely understanding alien perspectives. "You study xenobiology?" she asked carefully, fascinated by it, Ryan said. And there was no mistaking the enthusiasm in his voice. "Every species has these incredible adaptations. The Xenobiology neural networks process data 3 times faster than a human brain. Under certain conditions, the drowning can withstand hard vacuum for short periods. And your ancestors evolved under constant electrical storms, right? Maya's antennae rose involuntarily, the Zenthari equivalent of raised eyebrows. You actually read our history, she said, of course. Why wouldn't I? Ryan asked, genuinely puzzled. Because you're supposed to be the scary Deathworlder, she thought. Because the reports say you treat everyone like a potential threat, not someone worth knowing. Instead, she heard herself say, most non-Zenthari find our storm evolution unsettling, unsettling. Ryan grinned. It's awesome. You literally grew up in lightning. Against her expectations, Maya found herself relaxing. She talked about her work, about the recurring power coupling problems on Deck 7, about how the station's systems never quite behaved the way the designers promised. When Ryan asked about her homeworld's crimson skies, she answered, surprised at how easy it was to explain something so personal to someone who'd never seen it. Ryan listened with an attention that bordered on unnerving. His gaze didn't wander, and he didn't interrupt. When he finally spoke about his own research studying how different species' immune systems adapted to space travel, his hands moved as he talked, sketching invisible diagrams in the air. The thing is, he said, leaning forward a little, humans aren't special. We just got a weird mix of adaptations that happened to work. But every species has their own kind of strength. The Xthuri, the Drowny. You Zenthari can sense energy fields. That's not just cool. That's a perspective humans could never have naturally. We don't know what the station feels like the way you do. Something shifted in Maya's perception. This wasn't the human from the security briefings. This wasn't the monster from the cautionary tales. This was someone genuinely amazed by the diversity of life around him. Then the station shuddered. The floor lurched beneath them, and the lights flickered violently. Maya's antennae flared in pain as electromagnetic chaos crashed over her senses like a tidal wave. Alarms howled across the cantina. Power surge, she gasped. Engineering. Deck 7. She didn't know how she knew it, but every filament in her antennae screamed the same direction. Deck 7. Couplings. Overload. Ryan was already on his feet. Show me. They ran. The corridors swarmed with confused and panicking crew of a dozen species. Maya's perceptions turned the station into a blur of twisted, spiking fields, shimmering arcs, and painful noise. But she used that chaos as a map, letting it guide her. Ryan ran beside her with effortless, terrifying speed. Where the crowd bottlenecked, he slipped through, clearing a path. His reflexes earning every rumor the Cooperative had spread about Deathworlders. They reached engineering to find a nightmare. The main fusion coupling was overloading, energy building in a catastrophic feedback loop that made Maya's senses shriek. The display screens flashed warning sigils in half a dozen languages. The air vibrated with barely contained power. Zenthari engineers lined the walls, unable to approach. Their own sensitivity made it agonizing to get within a few meters of the coupling. Even at the entrance, Maya's knees wanted to buckle. 30 seconds until breach. The computer announced in a painfully cheerful tone, I can see the surge pattern. Maya managed through gritted teeth. Her antennae burned with input, each arc of overloaded energy a spike of agony in her skull. but I can't get close enough to manually reroute. It'll knock me out. Tell me what to do, Ryan said. Maya stared at him. He couldn't sense electromagnetic fields. He'd be operating blind in a storm she could barely withstand at this distance. You'll have to feel for the right conduit, she said. The feedback is subtle. I can guide you verbally, but I trust you, Ryan said simply. 3 words. No hesitation. Something locked into place inside Maya. Her focus sharpened. The pain narrowing from overwhelming torture to a jagged but usable signal. Left panel, she said. 3rd conduit from the top. It's the hottest surge line. Ryan moved without hesitation. Hands braced against a panel that made other engineers flinch just to look at it. He pried it open, revealing a tangle of conduits humming with lethal power. 2nd bundle on the right, Maya said. You should feel a vibration slightly out of sync with the others. That's the feedback loop. Ryan's fingers brushed along the conduits. This one. No. Lower. There. Her voice turned sharp. Yes. Disconnect it and reroute clockwise into the backup grid. You'll get an arc discharge. Don't let go. Got it. He pulled. Sparks exploded across his hands. The smell of scorched fabric hit the air, but Ryan didn't release his grip. The surge pattern shuddered, and Maya felt the energy flow begin to shift. Now counterclockwise, she said. Other side, top conduit. It's overloading. You need to pull it free and ground it into the emergency relay. Hurry. Tell me when I'm there. She rode the chaos, letting the pain paint a map in her mind. There. That one. Pull. Now. He yanked the conduit free. For a heartbeat, the electromagnetic field flared so painfully bright that Maya cried out. Then it snapped into a new configuration. Energy flowing into backup systems instead of building toward breach. The alarms cut off mid-wail. The oppressive pressure in the air eased. The M-storm subsided to its usual, gentle background hum. Maya sagged against a console, her antennae drooping in exhausted relief. Around them, engineers stared, some at the stabilized readouts, some at Maya, most at the human with singed sleeves and reddened hands, grinning like he'd just finished a particularly exciting training drill. We make a good team, Ryan said, flexing his fingers. Later, back in the cantina, Maya's crewmates swarmed her, chattering questions over one another. How did you work with the human? Wasn't it terrifying? Did he threaten you? Maya glanced across the room. Ryan had returned to his corner table, a fresh drink in hand, datapad propped up again. He looked up as if he'd felt her gaze, met her eyes, and raised his glass in a small, knowing salute. Terrified? Maya repeated. She considered the word, then shook her head. No. Impressed, she picked up her own drink and, ignoring the chorus of shocked chirps and whistles behind her, walked back to Ryan's table. Mind if I sit? She asked. I have more questions about your research. Ryan's smile was warm and immediate. I'd like that, as she settled into the seat across from him again. Maya realized something the reports had never captured. Humans weren't dangerous merely because they were strong, or stubborn, or absurdly resilient. They were dangerous because they made you want to be better, Because they saw potential in others that even those species didn't see in themselves. Because, given a choice between walls and bridges, they kept picking bridges, and maybe Maya thought as she and Ryan fell into easy conversation. That willingness to reach across the unknown was the wildest thing about humans of war.